everyone, my name's Stonesy Boy and welcome back to Reading with Stonesy. Last time was pretty big, so this time's gonna be pretty small. Not really, we're reading a lot of books today. Or I would say a lot of chapters, I guess. I don't know how to really explain it. It's hot in this room. But today we're reading chapter 41 to page 6, or not chapter 41, dang it, we're reading page 41 to page 63. And I would like to let you all know this right now, that although I do the reading videos and I do my own editing, there's always an editor looking over me. At least in the future, and maybe even in the past. Who knows? Wait, that doesn't make any sense. Wait, yeah, it kinda does. Who cares? I don't know. But yeah, today we're reading a few chapters. Shouldn't be that bad. And, besides the part where there was a bone in my mouth for some reason. Is that one of my bones? Hold on, I gotta check my jaw now. Now I have all 297 of them. Ah, what the freak was that then? Oh, I ate chicken earlier. Right. Yeah. Let's begin. Chapter 8. A lot of people don't believe in curses. A lot of people don't believe in yellow-spotted lizard either. But if one bites you, it doesn't make a difference whether you believe in it or not. Actually, it's kind of odd that scientists named the lizard after its yellow spots. Each lizard has exactly 11 yellow spots, but the spots are hard to see in the yellow-green body. The lizard is from 6 to 10 inches long and has big red eyes. In truth, the eyes are yellow, but it's skin around the eyes which is red. But everyone always speaks of its red eyes. There's also black teeth and milky white tongue. Looking at one, you will have thought that it would have been named something like a red-eyed lizard or a black-toothed lizard or perhaps the white-tongued lizard. If you've ever been close enough to yellow spots, you're probably dead. The yellow-spotted lizard like to live in holes, which offer shade in the sun, protection for predatory birds. Up to 20 lizards may live in one hole. They have strong, powerful legs and can leap out of very deep holes to attack their prey. They eat small animals, insects, certain cactus thorns, and shells of sunflower seeds. Chapter 9. Stanley stood in the shower and let a cold water pour over his hot and sore body. It was 4 minutes of heaven. For the second day in a row, he didn't use soap. He was too tired. There was no roof over the shower building. The walls were raised up 6 inches off the ground except for the corners. There was no drain on the floor. The water ran out under the walls and evaporated quickly in the sun. He put on his clean set of orange clothes. He returned to his tent, put his dirty clothes in his crate, and got out a pen and a box of stationery and headed to the rec room. The sign on the door said rec room. Nearly everything in the room was broken. The TV, the pinball machine, and the furniture. Even the people looked broken, with their worn-out bodies sprawled over the various chairs and sofas. Xray and Armpit were playing pool. The surface of the table reminded Stanley of the surface of the lake. It was full of bumps, holes, because many people have carved their initials into the felt. There was a hole in the far wall. An electric fan had been placed in front of it. Cheap air conditioning, at least the fan worked. As Stanley made his way across the room, he tripped over an outstretched leg. "Hey, watch it," said an orange lump on the chair. "You watch it," muttered Stanley, too tired to care. "What'd you say?" the lump demanded. "Nothing," said Stanley. The lump rose. It was almost as big as Stanley, and a lot tougher. "You said something." He poked his fat finger in Stanley's neck. "What'd you say?" A crowd quickly formed around them. "Be cool," said Xray. He put his hand on Stanley's shoulder. "You don't want to mess with the caveman," he warned. "The caveman's cool," said Armpit. "I'm not looking for trouble," Stanley said. "I'm just tired, that's all." The lump grunted. Xray and Armpit led Stanley over the couch. Squid slid over to make room when Stanley sat down. "Did you see the caveman back there?" Xray asked. "The caveman's one tough dude," said Squid, and he lightly punched Stanley's arm. Stanley leaned back against the torn vinyl upholstery. Despite of his shower, his body still radiated heat. He was trying to start anything, he said. The last thing he wanted to do after killing himself all day on the lake was get in a fight with a boy called Caveman. He was glad Xray Armpit had come to his rescue. "Well, how'd you like your first hole?" asked Squid. Stanley groaned, and the other boys laughed. "Well, the first hole's the hardest," said Stanley. "No way," said Xray. "The second hole's a lot harder. You're hurting before you even get started. If you think you're sore now, just wait until how you feel tomorrow morning, right?" "That's right," said Squid. "Plus, the fun's gone," said Xray. "The fun?" asked Stanley. "Don't lie to me," said Xray. "I bet you always wanted to dig a big hole, right? Am I right?" Stanley had never really thought about it before, but he knew better than to tell Xray he wasn't right. "Every kid in the world wants to dig a great big hole," said Xray. "To China, right?" "Right," said Stanley. "See what I mean?" said Xray. "That's what I'm saying, but now the fun's gone, and you gotta do it again, and again, and again. Camp's fun and games," said Stanley. "What's in the box?" asked Squid. Stanley forgot he brought it. Paper. I was gonna write a letter to my mother." "Your mother?" Squid laughed. You'll worry if I don't. Wade scowled. Stanley looked around the room. This was the only place at the camp where the boys could enjoy themselves, and that's what they do. They wrecked it. The glass on the TV was smashed as if someone had put his foot through it. Every table and chair seemed to be missing at least one leg. Everything leaned. He waited to write a letter till Squid had gotten up and joined a game of pool. Dear Mom, today was the first day at camp. I've already made some friends. We've been on the lake all day, so I'm pretty tired. Once I pass the swimming test, I'll get to learn how to water ski. He stopped writing because he came aware that somebody was reading over his shoulder. He turned to see Zero standing behind the couch. Don't want her to worry about me, he explained. Zero said nothing. He just stared at the letter with a serious, almost angry look on his face. Stanley slipped it back into the stationery box. Did the shoes have red X's on the back? Zero asked him. It took Stanley a moment, but he realized Zero was asking about Clyde Livingston's shoes. Yes, they did, he said. He wondered how Zero knew that. Brand X was a popular brand of sneakers. Maybe Clyde Livingston made a commercial for them. Zero stared at him for a moment in the same intensity which he had staring at the letter. Stanley poked his finger through a hole in the vinyl couch and pulled out some stuffing. He wasn't sure of what he was doing. Come on, caveman dinner, said Armpit. You coming, caveman? Said Squid. Stanley looked around to see Armpit and Squid were talking to him. Sure, he said, and he put a piece of stationery back in the box. Then got up and followed the boys out of the tables. The lump wasn't the caveman he was. He shrugged and let his left shoulder, it was better than Barf's bag. Chapter 10. Stanley had no trouble falling asleep, but morning came much too quickly. Every muscle in the joint of the body ached as he tried to get out of bed. He didn't think it was possible that his body hurt more than he did the day before. It wasn't just his arms and back, it was legs, ankle, and waist also hurt. The only thing that got him out of the bed was knowing that every second he wasted meant he was 1 second closer to the rising sun. He hated the sun. He could barely lift a spoon during breakfast, and then he was out on the lake, the spoon replaced by a shovel. He found a crack in the ground and began to dig his second hole. He stepped back on the shovel blade and pushed on the very back of the shaft and the base of the thumb. His hurt less, and trying to hold the shaft in the blistered fingers. As he dug, he was careful to dump the dirt far away from his hole. He needed to save the area around the hole for when his hole was much deeper. He didn't know if he'd get that far. Xray was right. The second hole was the hardest, and it would take a miracle. As long as the sun wasn't out yet, he removed his cap and used it to protect his hands. Once the sun rose, he would have to put it back on his head. His neck and forehead had been badly burned the day before. He took one shovelful at a time, and tried not to think of the awesome task that lay ahead of him. After an hour or so, his sore muscles seemed to loosen up a bit. He grunted as he tried to stick his shovel into the dirt. His cap slipped out of under his fingers, the shovel fell free. He let it lie there. He took a drink from his canteen and guessed that water truck would be coming soon. But he didn't finish all the water just in case he was wrong. He learned to wait until he saw the truck, before drinking the last drop. The sun wasn't up yet, and his rays arced over the horizon and brought light to the sky. He reached down and picked up his cap, where next to it was a wide, flat rock. As he put his cap on his head, he continued to look down at the rock. He picked it up and thought he could see a shape of a fish, fossilized in it. He rubbed off some dirt, and the outline of the fish became clear. The sun peeked over the horizon, and he got to see tiny lines where every one of the fish bones had been. He looked at the barren land all around him. True, everyone referred to the area as a lake, but still hardly ever believed that this dry land was once full of water. Then he remembered what Mr. Sir and Mr. Podensky had both said. If he dug up anything interesting, he would report it to them. If the warden liked it, he would get the rest of the day off. He looked back down at the fish. He found his miracle. He continued to dig, though very slowly, and he waited for the water truck. He didn't want to bring attention to his find, afraid of one of the other boys might try to take it from him. He tossed the rock face down beside the dirt pile, as if it had no special value. A short while later, he saw a cloud of dirt heading across the lake. Truck stopped and the boys lined up. There was always a line in the same order. Stanley realized no matter who got there first, Xray was always in front of the line. Then came Armpit, Squid, Zigzag Magnet, and Zero. Stanley got in line behind Zero. He was glad to be in the back, so no one would notice the fossil. His pants had very large pockets, but the rock was still made a bulge. Mr. Podensky filled each boy's canteen, so Stanley was the only one left. I found something, Stanley said, taking it out of his pocket. Mr. Podensky reached for Stanley's canteen, but Stanley handed him the rock instead. What's this? It's a fossil, said Stanley. See, a fish. Mr. Podensky looked at it again. See, you can even see all the little bones, said Stanley. Interesting, said Mr. Podensky. Let me have your canteen. Stanley handed it to him. Mr. Podensky filled it and then returned it. So, will I get the rest of the day off? What for? You know, you said if I found something interesting, the warden would give me the day off. Mr. Podensky lastly gave the fossil back to Stanley. Sorry, Stanley, but the warden isn't interested in fossil. Let me see that, said Magnet, taking the rock from Stanley. Stanley continued to stare at Mr. Podensky. Hey, Zig, dig this rock. Cool, said Zigzag. Stanley saw his fossil being passed around. I didn't see nothing, said Xray. He took off his glasses, wiped his dirty on his dirty clothes and put them back on. See? Look at the little fishy, said Armpit. Stanley returned to his hole. It wasn't fair. Mr. Brudensky had even said his fossil was interesting. He slammed his shovel into the ground and pried up another piece of earth. After a while, he noticed Xray had come by and was watching him dig. Hey, caveman, let me talk to you a second, Xray said. Stanley put down his shovel and stepped out of his hole. Hey, say, listen, said Xray. If you find something else, give it to me, okay? Stanley wasn't sure what to say. Xray was clearly the leader of the group, and Stanley didn't want to get on his bad side. You're new here, right? Said Xray. I've been here for almost a year. I've never found anything. You know, my eyesight's not that so good. No one knows this, but you know why my name's Xray? Stanley shrugged one shoulder. It's Pig Latin for Rex. That's all. I'm too blind to find anything. Stanley tried to remember how Pig Latin worked. Xray went on. Why should you get a day off when you only been here a couple of days? If any gets the day off, it should be me. That's only fair, right? I guess, Stanley agreed. Xray smiled. You're a good guy, caveman. Stanley picked up his shovel. The more he thought about it, the more he was glad that he agreed to let Xray have anything he might find. If he was going to survive Camp Green Lake, it was more important that Xray think he was a good guy than it was for him to get one day off. Besides, he didn't expect to find anything anyway. There probably wasn't anything of interest out here. And if there was, he'd never been what you would call lucky. He slammed his blade into the ground, then dumped out another shovel full of dirt. It was a little surprising, he thought, that Xray was the leader of the group, since he obviously wasn't the biggest or toughest. In fact, except for Zero, Xray was the smallest. His Armpit was the biggest. Zigzag may have been taller than Armpit, but it was only because of his neck. Yes, Armpit and all the others seemed to be willing to do whatever Xray asked of them. As Stanley dug up another shovel full of dirt, it occurred to him that Armpit wasn't the biggest. He, the caveman, was bigger. It was glad they called him Caveman. It meant they accepted him as a member of the group. It would have been glad if they called him Barfbag. It was quite remarkable of him. At school, bullies like Derek Doone would used to pick on him. Yet Derek Doone would be the scariest, senseless any of the boys there. As he dug his hole, Stanley thought he would be like Derek Doone and had to fight Armpit or Squid. Derek wouldn't stand a chance. He imagined that it would be like he became good friends with them all, and then for some reason they all went with him to school, and then Derek Doone tried to steal his notebook. Just what do you think you're doing? Asked Squid as he slams his head into Derek Doone's smug face. Caveman's our friend, says Armpit, grabbing him by the shirt collar. Stanley played the scene over and over in his mind, and each time watching another boy from the Group D beat up Derek Doone, it helped him dig his hole with ease and his own suffering. Whatever pain he felt was being felt 10 times worse by Derek. Chapter 12. Again, Stanley was the last one finished digging. It was late afternoon and he dragged himself back to the compound. This time he would have accepted a ride on the truck if it was offered. When he got to his tent, he found Mr. Brudensky and the other boys sitting in the circle on the ground. Welcome, Stanley, said Mr. Brudensky. Hey, caveman, did you get your hole dug? Asked Magnet. He managed to nod. You spit in it? Asked Squid. He nodded again. You're right, he said to Xray. The second hole was the hardest. Xray shook his head. The third hole is the hardest, he said. Come join our circle, said Mr. Brudensky. Stanley plopped down between Squid and Magnet. He needed a rest before taking a shower. We've been discussing what we want to do with our lives, said Mr. Brudensky. We're not going to be at Camp Green Lake forever. We need to prepare for the day we leave here and join the rest of society. Hey, that's great, Mom, said Magnet. They're going to finally let you out of here? The other boys laughed. Okay, Jose, said Mr. Brudensky. What do you want to do with your life? I don't know, said Magnet. You need to think about it, said Mr. Brudensky. It's important to have goals, otherwise you're going to end up right back in jail. What do you like to do? I don't know, said Magnet. You must like something, said Mr. Brudensky. I like animals, said Magnet. Good, said Mr. Brudensky. Does anyone know of the jobs that involve animals? Veterinarian, said Armpit. That's right, said Mr. Brudensky. He can work in a zoo, said Zigzag. He belongs in a zoo, said Squid. And then he and Xray laughed. How about you, Stanley? Any ideas for Jose? Stanley sighed. Animal trainer, he said. Like for the circus or movies or something like that. Any of those jobs sound good to you, Jose? Asked Mr. Brudensky. Yeah, I like what Caveman said about training animals for movies. I think it would be fun to train monkeys. Xray laughed. Don't laugh, Rex, said Mr. Brudensky. We don't laugh at people's dreams. Someone's going to have to train monkeys for the movies. Who are you kidding, Mom? Said Xray. Magnet's not going to be a monkey trainer. You don't know that, said Mr. Brudensky. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. Nothing in life is easy, but no reason to give up. You're surprised what you can accomplish if you set your mind to it. After all, you only have one life, so you should try to make the most of it. Stanley tried to figure out what he'd say to Mr. Brudensky asked him, and he wanted to do with his life. He used to think he wanted to work for the FBI, but this doesn't seem the appropriate place to mention that. So far, you've all done a pretty good job busting up your lives, said Mr. Brudensky. You know, you think you're cool. He looked at Stanley. So, you're a caveman now, huh? You like digging holes, caveman? Stanley didn't know what to say. Well, let me tell you something, caveman. You're the only kind of one person. If it wasn't for that person, you wouldn't be digging holes in the hot sun. You know who that person is? My note. good, dirty, rotten pigsty and great-great-grandfather? The other boys howled with laughter. Even Zero smiled. It was the first time Stanley had ever seen Zero smile. He usually had such an angry expression on his face. Now, he had such a huge smile, seemed too big for his face, like a smile on a jack-o'-lantern. No, said Mr. Budensky. That person is you, Stanley. You're the reason you're here. You're responsible for yourself. You messed up your life, and it's so to you to fix it. No one else is going to do it for you, for any of you. Mr. Budensky looked from one boy to another. You're all special in your own way, he said. You've all got something to offer. You have to think about it when you want to do. Then do it. Even you, Zero. You're not completely worthless. The smile was now gone from Zero's face. What do you want to do with your life, Mr. Budensky asked him. Zero's mouth was shut tight. He glared at Mr. Budensky. His dark eyes seemed to expand. What about it, Zero? Asked Mr. Budensky. What do you like to do? I like to dig holes. Chapter 13. All too soon, Stanley was back on the lake, sticking a shovel into the dirt. Xray was right. The third hole was the hardest. So was the fourth hole, and the fifth hole, and the sixth, He dug his shovel into the dirt. After a while, he lost track of the day of the week, and how many holes he had dug. It all seemed like one big hole, and it would take a year and a half to dig it. Guess he'd lost at least 5 pounds. He figured that in a year and a half he'd be better in great physical condition, or else dead. He dug a shovel into the dirt. It wouldn't always be this hot, he thought. Surely it would be cool in December. Maybe then they froze. He dug his shovel into the dirt. His skin had gotten tougher. It didn't hurt so much to hold the shovel. As he drank from the canteen, he looked up to the sky. A cloud had appeared early in the day. It was the first cloud he could remember seeing since coming to Camp Green Lake. He and the other boys had been watching it all day, hoping it would move in front of the sun. Occasionally it got close, but it was just teasing them. This hole was waist deep. He dug his shovel into the dirt. As he dumped it out, as he thought he would saw something glistening and fell into the dirt pile. Whatever it was quickly buried. Stanley started a pile a moment, unsure if he'd even seen it. Even if it was something, what good would it do to him? He promised to give everything he found to Xray. It didn't seem like the worth the effort to climb out of this hole and check it out. He glanced up at the cloud, which was close enough to the sun that he squinted to look at it. He dug his shovel back into the earth, scooped out some dirt, and lifted it over a dirt pile, but instead of dumping it there, he tossed it off to the side. His curiosity got into the better of him. He climbed out of the hole and sifted his fingers through the pile. He found something hard and metallic. He pulled it out. It was a gold tube, about as long as the wide of the second finger on his right hand. The tube was open at one end and closed on the other, and just a few drops of precious water to clean it. There seemed to be some kind of design on the flat, closed end. He poured a few drops of water on it and rubbed it on the side of the pants pocket. He looked again at the design engraved on the flat bottom of the tube. He could see the outline of a heart, which were letters KB etched inside it. He tried to figure out some way he wouldn't have to give it to Xray. He would just keep it, but that wouldn't do him any good. He wanted the day off. He looked at the large piles of dirt near Xray as digging. Xray was probably the most finished for the day. Getting the rest of the day off would hardly do him much good. Xray would first have to show the tube to Mr. Sir and Mr. Budensky, who would then have to show it to the warden. By then, Xray would be done anyway. Stanley wondered about being to secretly take the tube directly to the warden. He could explain the situation to the warden, and the warden might give an excuse for giving the day off, so Xray wouldn't suspect. He looked across the lake toward the cabin under the 2 oak trees. The place scared him. He'd been at the Camp Green Lake almost 2 weeks, and he almost didn't see the warden. That was just as well. If he could go to this entire year and a half without seeing the warden, that would be fine with him. Besides, he didn't know if the warden would find the tube interesting. He looked at it again. It looked familiar. He thought he'd seen something like it somewhere before, but couldn't quite place it. What do you got there, caveman? Asked Zigzag. Stanley's large hand closed around the tube. Nothing, just, it was useless. I think I might have found something. Another fossil? No, I'm not sure what it is. Let me see, said Zigzag. Instead of showing it to Zigzag, Zigzag brought it to Xray. Zigzag followed. Xray looked at the tube, then rubbed his dirty glasses on his tight, dirty shirt, and looked at the tube again. One by one, the other boys dropped their shovel and came to look. It looks like an old shotgun shell, said Squid. Yeah, that's probably what it is, said Stanley. He decided not to mention it, engraved design. Maybe nobody would notice it. He doubt Xray could see it. No, it's too long and thin to be a shotgun shell, said Magnet. It's probably just a piece of junk, said Stanley. Well, I'll show it to Mom, said Xray. See what he thinks. Who knows? Maybe I'll get the day off. Your hole is almost finished, said Stanley. Yes, so? Stanley raised and lowered his shoulder. Why don't you wait until tomorrow to show it to Mom, he suggested. You can pretend you found it first thing in the morning. Then you could get the whole day off instead of just an hour, or so this afternoon. Xray smiled. Good thinking, caveman. He dropped the tube into his large pocket and right leg of the dirty orange pants. Stanley returned to his hole. When the water truck came, Stanley stared at his place in the end of the line, but Xray told him to get behind Magnet in front of Zero. Stanley moved up one place in line. And that's the end of that. My favorite line to say. We read a lot of chapters today. We got all the way through chapter 13. So, yeah. I think we did pretty good today. 22 minutes on that. And I also realized last time I didn't change the number. So tomorrow we're reading page 64, if I'm not mistaken. And usually I want to get to 80. Well, page 80 is on chapter 18. Oh, okay. So just to 82. That's fine. That's 100% fine. It's either exactly... yeah, 82. That's not bad at all. So yeah, hope you guys have a fantastic, wonderful day. People like, be efficient, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.